Okay, we're ready for you if you'd like to start.
Let me get my so-called instrument here. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari
Gopi Jana
Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Kunja Vihari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Amara Kunja Vihari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari
Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana
Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana
Jamuna Tira Vanachari
Jamuna Tira Vanachari
Radha Madhava Asasaki Ki Jai Prabhupada Ki Jai. It sounds like, wow. Sounds like some howling and wailing in the background there. Now it stopped. Okay. Good. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam 1733. It's gone Hawaii. 2013 July 12. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay. Tata asadya tarasa.
Tada asadya
Tarasa
Darunang Gautamī sutam.
Dharanang
Gautamī sutam
Babandham marshatam raksha.
Babandham marshatam raksha.
Pashum rasa nagayata. Boliye.
Tada asadya tarasa.
Tada asadya tarasa
Darunam Gautamī sutam.
Darunam Gautamī sutam
Babadhamarsha tamarsha.
Babandhamarsha tamraksha
Pashmu
Pashung
Yata
Pashung Rasanaya Yata Tata Asadya Tarasa
Tata asadya tarasa
Darunang Gautamī Sutam
Gautami Sutam
Babandhamarsha Tamraksha
Raksha
Pashung Rashanaya Yata
Tata sadya tarasa
Tata Adya Tarasa
Darunam Gautami Sutam
Darunang Gautamī Sutam
Bandhamasha Tamraksha
Babandhamarsha Tamraksha
Pashun Rasanaya Yata
Pashung Rasanaya Yata Tata Asadya Tarasa Darunang Gautamī Sutam Babandhamarsha Tamraksha Pashung Rasanaya Yata Tata Asadya Tarasa
Darunam
Gautamī Sutam Babandhamarsha Tamraksha Pashung Rasanaya Yata
Tata,
Tata
thereupon, asadya,
Asadya
arrested, tarasa,
Tarasa
dexterously, darunam, dangerous, Gautamī Sutam,
Gautamī Sutam,
the son of Gautamī, Babanda, bound up, Amarsha, angry, Tamra, Akshaha, with copper red eyes, Pashum, animal, Rasanaya, by ropes, Yata, as it were. Okay. Translation: Arjuna, his eyes blazing in anger like two red balls of copper, dexterously arrested the son of Gautamī and bound him with ropes like an animal. Okay, please repeat. Arjuna, his eyes blazing in anger, like two red balls of copper, dexterously arrested the son of Gautamī, and bound him with ropes like an animal.
Hanumatpresaka, Swami, you can just give me a second to mute everybody. Okay, let's find you. We have a lot of callers online, so trying to find you. I'm sorry, this is taking a while. Let's see. Oh, there you go. Okay, I'm sorry. It took a minute. Okay, now I've unmuted you. I'll unmute myself. Thank you.
Oh, okay. There's a purport by Srila Prabhupada. Ashvatthama's mother, Kripi, was born in the family of Gautama. And so we have, Gautamī Sutta. Yeah, Gautamī Sutta. Yeah. The significant point in this shloka is that Ashvatthama was caught and bound up with ropes like an animal. According to Sridhar Swami, Arjuna was obliged to catch this son of a Brahmana, like an animal, as a part of his duty, dharma. This suggestion by Sridhar Swami is also confirmed in the later statement of Sri Krishna. Ashvatthama was a bona fide son of Dronacharya and Kripi, but because he had degraded himself to a lower status of life, it was proper to treat him as an animal and not as a Brahmana. So short purport, then actually I looked up in the, Prabhupadvani.org, and there's actually a lecture by this on Prabhupada, this verse, and he makes several interesting points, quite a few points. And we have here one point that I think it was somewhere where it's describing how Lord Balaram killed Ramaharshan Sutta or something, and he took his bath in the lakes at Kurukshetra, where Parasuram had filled all these lakes with blood. And Prabhupada quotes there that violence is never good, right? But it is sometimes necessary to defend the weak against the strong when good argument fails, like that, so on. So this is kind of before, because it's saying that Arjuna, was duty bound to do this. He was obligated to do this, because actually in the social circumstance of that time, to treat a Brahmana, like that with such disrespect, to bind him up, was very, very offensive. You can understand that if it was so offensive to treat a Brahmana like this, how offensive was it to Draupadi to try and bring her in and disnude her in front of all these men? It was unbelievable. The level it was going to. So the very first principle, Prabhupada is saying that violence is never good. We mentioned this before. We had to give this lecture in Peru to all these police people, Secret Service guys, and after the lecture, one of them asked us if you had to kill somebody, in the line of duty, there's no other way to do it. Did you get bad karma? And I said no. If that's the whole thing. If you had to do it in a situation like that and you tried your best to avoid it, then no, there's not exactly any reaction for it. But I was quoting this, that violence is never good, but sometimes is necessary. So making this point that it's necessary, you have to do it, but afterwards you're probably not going to feel good about it. So he was kind of nodding. I noticed a couple more people in the room were nodding too. Maybe they had a circumstance, where they, in different police officers, you talk to them, they just, when something happens like that, one guy said, it's happened a few times home before, I go back, I fill out the forms, I go home, I don't say anything to my wife, and I just, I sit down and go into my room. Because it's a very heavy thing like that. There's a reaction like that. So Prabhupada says, but it must be applied expertly, or there will be a bad taste afterwards for everybody. And of course, it's very difficult to do that. We can dovetail so many things with Krishna's service, but it's very difficult to dovetail this to violence and stuff like that. And you've got to be very expert. And of course, the more violence you have to use to correct the situation, and the more chance there is of collateral damage. A very difficult thing. And of course, this is applying it expertly. That's the job, but we see the job of the Kshatriya, we're supposed to be, walk around with a weapon. Prabhupada says a Kshatriya can't do his job without weapons, good dress, and civil respect, like that. And so then most times he doesn't even have to use the weapon. Prabhupada even said in the classroom with the kids, he said you have a little stick and you show it at the children and say, you stop doing this. I told you 3 times to be quiet, stop disturbing everybody. And he says you never use it. He gives, of course, the example of the cobra, who shows his hoods. Narada Muni told this cobra, don't hurt anybody. So he didn't bite anybody, but the people started throwing rocks at him and twisting him. So he went to Narada Muni and complained, my Guru Dev, I'm following your instructions, but everybody's harassing me now. So then Narada Muni's comment was, I told you couldn't bite anybody, but I didn't say you couldn't show your hoods. So that's it, you show your stick like that. And of course we're probably not any Kshatriyas here where we have to have the option of showing our 457 Magnum to somebody like that, so on. But there's one book I saw one time. It was like this guy was a martial arts guy, and it was like the 10 most dangerous men in the world, or something like 10 guys that he knew were the baddest men in the world. And one of them was a police officer in Hawaii, actually, come to think of it. And he said the guy was, worked out twice a week, every week, and was very famous as a martial artist guy, indigenous guy from Hawaii. But he said not one time in his entire career as a police officer did he ever have to use physical violence. Just this guy's look and his mindset of being ready to annihilate anybody who actually bothered him was so sufficient, that he never had to use it like that. Another good source of how to apply violence to control the wrongdoers is teachers training. Maybe some teachers in our audience. I was staying with one of our disciples, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and his wife, Mother Shubhra, she was a teacher, then she became a principal, primary school principal, And I was looking at one of her books, and it was talking about how to control the classroom, And what the student-teacher ratio is actually ridiculous. She had maybe 20 kids, So the first thing it said is separate troublemakers. Sangat sanjayate kama. When monkeys see each other, they just start hopping up and down, looking at each other, going whoop 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 whoop. I've directly seen little kids do this. When they got together, they just started looking at each other. It was amazing, exactly like monkeys. They just started kind of hopping up and down and making noises like that. And they wanted to do all kinds of mischief and run around, increase their adrenaline output. So the first principle is separate mischief makers, And the second principle is start getting out of hand all by themselves. You should give them a look that would rock socks. It says in there. And they even suggested that you practice this. You sit in the mirror and you practice your mean dog look here now. We got the mean dog in the picture like that. You practice that a few times until you really got it down. And then one of your mischief mongers starts to act up, and you give them one of these looks like that, And many times that might be quite enough. I didn't go beyond that, but of course it's a whole science that people learn, and especially if you're in an administrative position, it means violence, it means force, it means prestige, it means power. And many of us, most of us, I guess, we have the shooter tendencies, so we want somebody who's going to take charge of the situation, who's going to take charge of our mind for us and say, Prabhu, I think maybe we should keep on the topic a little bit here. Okay, yeah, right. So common person appreciates this because he's being harassed by his mind. So maybe even at this point, Ashvatthama was actually, by this point, probably he was feeling a little guilty because he was the son of a Brahmana. And he had all these very elevated qualities. And he killed all the children to satisfy Duryodhana, and Duryodhana wasn't happy with him, like that. And so by this time, now he's being blown up by a Brahmastra weapon. So he's going to kill everybody in the universe. So probably by this time he's actually feeling like, maybe he's happy that finally Arjuna just took charge of the situation. And whatever happens, at least I can let go and let God do everything. You know? So that the situation is violence and administrative situations very necessary. And unless you can do it, you should really become an administrator. Chanaka Pandit, he says that the king should be mild. What's the word? Like friendly with his subjects, but he shouldn't be so mild that they forget he's the king. You know. And one business guy I know, one devotee, he had like 50 employees, and actually he had a parking lot cleaning business, which was it was boring as anything, but it was very lucrative. You know, it was cleaning parking lots and big shopping malls. We had 100 employees. He had 50 machines that would go out, and he had I mentioned it before. I think he had like 6 different suits. So he just wore them one after another. But because there were 6, the employees couldn't figure out. You know, Tuesday the boss is wearing this suit always. No, it rotates. That way they just couldn't figure out how many suits he had. He must have been very rich. You know? So he had good suits. And he said one principle of business is that when the employees are in front of the boss, they always have to be conscious of the fact they're in front of the boss. But it shouldn't be so heavy that they can't be friendly and have fun and have a good time, you know. So there's a whole science of this Kshatriya Dharma. And it says in the verse exactly this, you know, that Arjuna was obliged to do this. And the way it says obliged, I think maybe it's even pointing out, you know, that he didn't want to do it, you know, so on. But he was obliged to do it, you know. Yeah, many reasons we can go into why Arjuna would feel uncomfortable about this, you know. But he was obliged to do this because it was his dharma, you know, to correct a situation like that. You know. So that's the first point I was thinking about in this, you know, is that from the Kshatriya point of view, it's not good, but sometimes it's necessary, like that. One more. Where is it here? I have one more picture here. Here's also I guess you can see that too. Nice picture of defending the weak against the strong. There we go. Yeah. There we go. Violence is never good, but it's sometimes necessary to defend the weak against the strong. You know, when good argument fails, like that. Okay. So the next possibility is that we're not Kshatriyas, and then we can apply the age-old art of run fu. What you got here? Like that. Yeah. Run for your life. And this is what we understand is right as Madhyamadikari. Madhyamadikari makes friendship with the devotees. Right? He worships the Supreme Lord. Kanistadikari just worships the Supreme Lord. He only distinguishes one class of people, God and me. You know? And my deity, my book, my service, whatever. And crush everybody else. You know? So then Madhyamadikari, he worships the Supreme Lord, loves him. He makes friendship with the devotees, you know, avoids the demons. Here we see our friend Bhaktagato avoiding the demons, you know, and he preaches to the innocent, like that, you know. So even that point, Prabhupada says the same thing. In the beginning, he told one letter to Tushta Krishna Swami. In the beginning, when you're preaching, he says some force may be necessary, like that. But he said unless it's applied expertly, there'll be a bad taste afterwards. You know, the same point. You know? So maybe you have to talk a little forcefully to somebody or argue and stuff like that. You know? But again, it has to be applied with expertly. Upadeshamrita, Prabhupada distinguishes two classes of Kanistha-adhikaris, two classes of people. Some Kanistha-adhikaris are doing all this stuff, or even good people, but it's just that they're innocent. And so you may be preaching this way and that way with your ideas, but what Prabhupada says there, if they will accept instructions from the pure devotee or scriptures, then we should do the austerity of trying to communicate things to them and deal with them. So again, I had personal experience of this when I was a president. One time I was trying to convince this devotee to do one service, something like that, act in a certain way, and he wasn't accepting. Then I remembered this instruction from Prabhupada and I thought, well, what did Prabhupada say about this? And I remember some citation from Prabhupada, and I quoted Prabhupada, and he accepted, So there's this distinction that some people, they're innocent, and ultimately we distinguish if they're innocent by if they're willing to surrender to Scripture, and not just to our particular opinion of things like that. And of course we've got to be pure, to be able to present this properly. And then Krishna will send people like that, and so on, And then we can go out and preach, and again, sometimes depending how expert you are, you see Prabhupada could use, Prabhupada sometimes in room conversations and stuff, different things, he would be talking quite strongly, Even the other people, he would have them arguing and yelling back and forth with them. But this next moment, Prabhupada would calm the whole thing down, the same people would be laughing with him, So expert use of force. So along that same line, we had this experience in the Brajmandal Parikrama, and I mentioned this before also. But it's a very intense experience. You're going like marching every day, going barefoot, thorns sticking you, and a lot of the pressure is actually even social, because people like snoring, sleeping at night, and it gets to the point of different. Bhadra told me at one point that the Biharis were just about ready to take up sticks and start beating the people from Uttar Pradesh and the Bengalis. And it's interesting because everybody has their own way of acting. Like the Russians, they all act like tanks. Just march ahead and push everybody aside, everything else, doing physical austerities. And people have a whole different standard of how they nod their head this way or that way. So there's so much physical distress, so much emotional and social distress, and so many times you see people just flipping out and screaming or pushing somebody or like that, so on. So somewhere on the line, this mantra here in the bottom corner came into my mind. In Vrindavan, only Krishna and Balaram kill demons, like that. And I thought about it. It's a fact. There's any example other than Krishna Balaram. They're the only people in all the whole Krishna book who kill anybody. And everybody else just chants Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, like that. In Prabhupada's lecture on this verse, he said there, therefore Shastra has recommended that you chant Hare Krishna. It is a very hopeless condition. It's Kali Yuga. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevala. 3 times, three times. When you speak 3 times anything, it means I am giving stress. So it is like that in order to stop so many inconveniences of this present day life, Kali Yuga, you just chant Hare Krishna. And I think it's, wow, I guess that we live in a pretty fortunate circumstances because of our conditioning, or maybe something like that. The fact that we have access to internet, we speak English, must mean right away we're somewhat fortunate circumstances in terms of some things, and also because we come in contact with Prabhupada. So now, we're more or less in the higher planetary systems just by being in ISKCON. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridiyantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti suhritsatam. So we become pious, freed up just by chanting Hare Krishna. first result. But other than that, and even us, even still, like during this lecture, Prabhupada started coughing very, very, a little bit violently, and had to ask for some water. He said something about another demon. So maybe he was being attacked by demons, I don't know. But even we know in ISKCON and everything else, and in the Bhagavatam, there's so much subtle stress, and the amount of distress that we cause each other in ISKCON is probably, I have a suspicion that everybody listening to this class who's been in ISKCON for more than 5 years at some point has cried like that because of the distress. It takes a lot to make a grown man cry. You can ask some of the men here. But my goodness, sometimes the problems, and I was a brahmachari and stuff, it was unbelievable. The emotional, and psychological harassment that would go on like that and stuff. So you just calm down and take a deep breath and chant Hare Krishna, and walk out the door, or whatever you have to do. Just surrender, like Draupadi. Just toss your hands in the air, and Hare Krishna. And then, how does Krishna protect us? He gives us intelligence. Maybe the first thing he gives us intelligence is how to avoid the situation, like that. And if he wants to, then he gives us intelligence again how to be aggressive and actually take positive steps like that, and so on. But again, that's more dangerous. It's more dangerous, and it can be a bad reaction. But Prabhupada again and again, because we're Gosti Anandis and because we're following Arjuna's example, that's specifically what Krishna told him. That at this point, non-violence is not proper. But what's the circumstance? What's the circumstance? Circumstance, right, is that they tried to avoid the situation for how long? Like that. Seems like something like about 35 years. 35 years they put up with this. They put up with it as kids, and then when Krishna told them you had to take responsibility for your birthright, then Dhritarashtra, rather than making him king, gave him half the kingdom. And then to get revenge, what did he give him? He gave him this totally ridiculous place in the forest with snakes and everything else, but they made it into the most beautiful place in the world. And then Duryodhana, Shakuni, they tricked them with this horribly deceitful game of dice and everything else. But Yudhishthira tolerated it. He lived in the forest for 14 years. So it was everything on and on. So our own example is that maybe even even at Treya Rishi was with Prabhupada a lot. And he said he noticed that Prabhupada would only go to using power as a means of resolving problems as the last resort. Even when he was dealing with disciples, Prabhupada wouldn't just say, just do this, do that. I'm the guru, this and that. He would always tend to explain things properly, and see the people in the proper position and stuff like that. Only as more or less as a last resort, or if the person wanted it, because we know Prabhupada liked to fight. He told Shruti Kirti that. You're no fun. You don't fight back. So, but that was with people that where he was familiar with them and so on. So very, very nice verse. Talks about this whole condition of using force and binding people up. Back to the verse here. The significant point in this sloka is that Ashvatthama was caught and bound up with ropes like an animal. According to Sridhar Swami, Arjuna was obliged to catch the son of a brahmana like an animal as part of his duty. The suggestion by Sridhar Swami is also confirmed in a later statement of Sri Krishna. So this means that Arjuna has to have very, very good sense of duty. And how do you have this? By hearing stories over and over again. By just continuously bathing yourself in the Vedic literatures and the different stories and stuff like that. Especially for us, not the concepts, but actual stories. And Prabhupada said Vyasadeva has given us such a great number of stories that we can always hear them. And then in some situation, the story you're involved in at some moment will stimulate you to remember, an appropriate story from the scriptures and stuff like that. And then, just naturally, we can understand what is our duty in a situation like that. And very difficult situations. Being attacked by the mind. Here it's violent, but also we get attacked by lust. We get attacked by honor, like that. And then also the ability, the intelligence of how to do our duty, properly. We know the goal, this is my duty, but how to do it properly. How, for example, there's one case I remember. We all know, for example, that when Prabhupada came to America, he invited one brahmachari, Gautamī brahmachari, to come with him. And he wanted to come. And he asked his spiritual master, and his spiritual master said, no, it is too dangerous. All the women in those Western countries are so loose in their dress and their habits and activities. Certainly you will fall down. So he told Prabhupada, I can't go, this is the reason. And Prabhupada was, critical of this, and, so on. But then many years later, I don't know, maybe like, my goodness, 2005 or something, this brahmachari, it was a sannyasi, and he wanted to come and travel in the United States and preach at all of our ISKCON centers. One second, I think I had to close the window. Absolutely, yeah. He wanted to come and preach in all of our ISKCON temples, and he said, well, Prabhupada told me to do this. So it became a big controversy in the GBC. If he could travel in North America and visit all of our temples and send the Vyasasan and preach. And so I think the decision was he could do it if he accepted Prabhupada. He said, I accept A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami as the founder Acharya of ISKCON, and like that and so on. In my preaching, I will accept him as my Acharya, and when I'm preaching there like that. And so I think he didn't want to do that. So I came to Canada, and Vancouver, and Jagadish Maharaj was there, and Vipramuka Swami, big temple there. And so I just kind of arrived, and they said, can you give class this morning, Maharaj? It was kind of odd. Wow, they're both there. What is it? All of a sudden, I just arrived. Can you give class? Okay. And I discovered why, because neither one of them wanted to sit on the Vyasasan in front of this, 75-year-old like Gautamī sannyasi and lecture in front of him like that and commit Vaishnava aparad. So, oh my God. So I was sitting there and everything else, and they gave the lecture, and he's sitting there and everybody else, maybe 65 devotees, and kind of looking at me. So, what to do? And so finally, I just, somehow or other, again, Krishna gives the inspiration within the heart to help out the most fallen first. So I gave lecture. Then as soon as I finished, I said, are there any comments? And they said, Maharaj, do you have any comments? And so then right away he made a comment on the verse. It was a nice comment, an intellectual comment. And he took about 5 minutes to do it, a little more like that, 10 minutes, And that was it. He was satisfied, And afterwards, Vipramuka Maharaj said, wow, it was perfect, We didn't break the GBC rule. At the same time, he satisfied him too, like that. So Krishna gives us intelligence. I've seen that even though we're totally incompetent to do some job, probably everybody's experienced this, suddenly this Krishna gives you the intelligence. And so many times Prabhupada emphasizes that. In the beginning of Nectar of Instruction, Bhagavad Gita 10:8, 10:9, 10:10, Tesham Satata Yuktanam. So it's a very real part of our culture that we have to be able to be intuitive people. And how to do that, of course, it means by remaining pure. Prabhupada says, all my devotees, they should be pure devotees so they can spread this message. And pure devotee, he defines, is you keep your nice full morning program, robust, get your rounds done nicely, do the work of keeping your mind focusing, and then you begin to feel things in your heart, And so you keep some purity. And then when we meet these situations, Tesham Satata Yuktanam, Krishna's in the heart, Krishna can actually give us the intelligence, ideas. He's doing it anyway, but here he can give us the the proper idea to deal with our situations like that and preach and stuff like that. You know, I feel guilty because I don't do like all this book distribution on the street. Yesterday we saw Vaisheshika, you know, one of the greatest book distributors in ISKCON, and it's just I don't know how many books he's distributed like that, and how many people he's inspired, you know. And now he's getting into classes of people, like of course, you know, young brahmacharis, whatever. Okay, yeah. But now of course he's got the whole temple here, which is predominantly Indians because it's ISKCON, Silicon Valley. And he got this whole system worked up to get everybody out on the street, going door to door and everything else, you know. Then he was telling me, we're talking about the primary school development, which is going on, a lot of possibilities, you know, these last few days especially. So he told me that in our small temple here, which is very small, you know, one time he decided, okay, let's take all the kids out. So they went out with maybe like about 7 little kids, like 5 years old and 6 years old, you know, and a couple ladies to help him. They started going around the block, door to door, like that, you know. And they said they came to one lady watering her garden, and they came up to her, and she said, "Oh no." I said, I'm a born again Christian. You can have no luck here." And he said the kids didn't really know what that means. They just all went right up to her and started pointing at the books, and this is Krishna. He does this and he does that, you know. and she started laughing, and she looked at the Vaisheshika, and she said, "Okay, how much?" Like that, you know. So everybody can be engaged according to a different service like that. But it's a whole thing. Prabhupada says preaching means, you know, confronting opposition. You know? And so myself, of course, doing it on the streets and stuff, I did it, you know, some. But for me, my natural thing is this lecturing program, which is Prabhupada said for sannyasi. And still, so many times, oh my goodness, you know, sometimes you really get, you know, almost so many times, you know, because you're dealing with maybe like 40 or 50 people or something, more 100 people, and sometimes, you know, the audience is not on your side. Like trying to argue with one person who may get angry at me, 120 people get angry at you, they can, you know, pull you limb from limb and, you know, pound you into some kind of peanut butter. So again, wow, it's chant Hare Krishna, and then Krishna will help us like that. So it's kind of my understanding of this verse is very, very, very significant. A lot of why was Arjuna not inclined? You know, what was doing what was Ashvatthama's own psychology in the situation like that, and especially this point of applying violence. You know, and here again, of course, it's not physical violence, but it's social violence. And the Bhagavad Gita says, you know, for one who's been honored, dishonor is worse than death. So we've got myself. I know I have a characteristic to be sarcastic about things. Kuranath, you may know him, is a lawyer here, devotee, and he said, you and I can usually get away with this because we're intelligent. But it's one natural fault I have. I know, and sometimes I do these things just kind of flippantly, and then people get hurt by this, you know, and stuff like comments like that, you know. So as devotees using violence and everything else, and being careful about when to use it properly, a big topic. You know. So any comments then? Anybody's, you know, ideas?
Okay, I've unmuted everybody. I have a question, Maharaj, but I would like to give everybody else a chance to say something first. Dhanyavad, Dhanyavad.
Hello, yeah, there's a little bit of a hurricane blowing in the background, but
You isolate that, Ramananda? Where that's coming from?
Yeah, I'm trying to see where it's coming from.
I think, Ramananda, I think maybe it's coming from you.
Really? Well, I was muted a second ago.
No, it's not. Yeah. Oh, there it goes. Now it's gone. I thought it was. Now it's gone. Okay, it's gone now. Yeah.
So, Maharaj, you said something that reminded me that Srila Prabhupada had a look sometimes. And it was in a remembrance. Brahmananda mentioned it in one of his remembrances, and they knew by this look that somebody was going to get it, right?
Yeah.
and it would strike fear in the hearts of the Westerners. And actually, the very word sadhu means to cut.
Yeah.
That's part of what the guru does. He cuts away the wicked propensity of the disciples.
Wow.
But just with
Surgeon.
words, I mean, you don't have to get physical if you know the art. You know, like Prabhupada had that technique with the dogs, you know, and then somebody else tried it, didn't work. And he said, you don't know the technique, you know.
Yeah.
But Prabhupada had that. He could get everybody's attention real quick just with a look.
And also, too, I know several stories, probably you do too, like where Prabhupada, for example, it was a Jagjivan, one devotee was, not for South America, but another devotee. He was in Germany with Prabhupada. It was a big stage program, and maybe 50 devotees on stage, and 300 people, 400 people in the audience. And one of the Matajis was dancing near the edge of the stage, on the other side, and then some young like rowdy German guys, 22, 23, were kind of Hare Krishnas, and they grabbed her sari because she was close enough like that. Were pulling on it, you know. And so Jagjivan said nobody saw this, but she was frightened and what's happening, you know. And so then so Prabhupada just came right off of the Vyasa in the middle of the kirtan. He raised the kartals, up like that, and started going right at these German, these 23-year-old heavy German guys. And he said it was so ferocious. These guys just like oh, sorry, and just kind of gasped. And the Prabhupada gave another look like, are you going to be good now? And they kind of like sheepish, like little boys and stuff, you know. And Prabhupada sat down on the asana again. And he said nobody but him apparently even noticed it, because Prabhupada got up and made this movement and sat down. It was way on the opposite side of the stage, and Prabhupada saw it like that, you know. But I don't know, maybe other times too, sometimes too, that Prabhupada was a story too when these Muslims came to were smashing temples. There's a story about that, and when Prabhupada was in Delhi or something. The devotee said that the Muslims were going door to door, smashing people in temples and stuff. So they came to the temple where Chippiwad, where Prabhupada was staying, and the guy he interviewed somebody who was there, older resident, and he said, Swamiji just came right out in front of the temple with a big stick, and he was just challenging maybe 8 of these guys. He said, you come to smash my temple? Come on, what are you waiting for? It's just like, I'm ready. It's like, this guy, he backed down, these 8 guys, they all went away like that stuff, you know. Jai, so Prabhupada ki jai.
Raj, I was thinking that also nice to mention that anger, of course, has its original, very beautiful form of ecstasy in the spiritual world. It just becomes perverted in touch with the material nature. And I was reading last night about when Mother Jasoda had tied Krishna to the mortar, and so little baby Krishna was going through the forest, and he went between the 2 Arjuna trees and knocked the trees over. Well, that could have been very dangerous to little Krishna. So Mother Rohini was furious. I mean, she became so angry, she got the whole neighborhood together. And then the whole neighborhood went, and they just really gave Mother Jasoda the sauce about how you got to be really, really careful not to ever put Krishna in a situation where he might get hurt. And of course, we know Radharani would sometimes become absolutely furious with Krishna. So just as a little reminder that anger does have its original, very beautiful form in the spiritual world.
I've heard that story. I think Govinda Maharaj was citing it, and it said the whole thing that they were like, Nanda Maharaj is also chastising. Everybody was chastising. What have you done like this, you know? But she was just totally bewildered. She couldn't figure out what happened, like that. Like, how did Krishna get in this situation? What, the trees falling down, you know? So everybody's yelling at me. She was just like, bewildered. And then finally, somehow or other, Krishna, embraced her or something, and everything made sense again, you know. Like that. Wow. Yeah.
I have a question, Maharaj.
Okay, or a comment, yeah.
That was cute about run fu.
Ah, yes, I saw that commercial. I think it was the original poster was this Chinese guy running from like 5, overweight, white redneck guys, laughing. It said, "Learn the age-old art of run, fool."
I come from originally a Catholic background, and there's these instances, especially in early Christian history, but just in general, martyrdom is seen as being, the highest virtue, and you've got all these instances of them being, Christians being eaten by lions and crucifixion and all that.
Wow.
Now, we do have some precedents to that in the life of Haridas Thakur, Prahlad Maharaj, etc. If you're in a situation that's very dangerous, you have some very antagonistic people, that want to hurt you, and if they know you're a devotee, should you be like Haridas Thakur and Prahlad Maharaj?
But in both cases, they Krishna protected them. They surrendered to Krishna, and Prahlad was so many harassments, but it wasn't bothering him. And the other one was what Haridas Thakur, same thing. He was being beaten through 14 marketplaces, but Lord Chaitanya was personally taking the beating on his back. So we should try to encourage that, and we should try to avoid having Krishna take care of our responsibilities. But I guess one point is that they weren't eaten like lions or something like that. And even St. Francis, he said he wanted to experience a little bit of the suffering that Christ experienced when he took all the sins of everybody on his own responsibility. But he, at the same time, too, he also wanted to experience a little bit of the mercy he got to be able to do it, like that, so on. So even I don't know, even I saw another one too. One girl, she refused to make an offering or something of incense to the emperor. That was the thing he had to do. He's God, And so she refused to do it, and that was a capital crime. And she actually was pregnant, So they waited until she gave birth to the child and this and that and everything else, and then she still refused to do it. So they took the child and said, "Okay, tomorrow you're going to go out," and stuff like that and so forth. So she was wondering, and then she had this vision of a, kind of like a golden pathway going up to heaven, and an angel with a spinning sword, like as terrifying as anything, at the bottom of the pathway. But she knew that it wouldn't hurt her, And then that's what she felt. That's what she said, this confidence, So the next day she went out into the arena, and then what happened? And they turned the lions loose, and she stared them down. She just stared at them, and they growled and howled. And finally they wouldn't attack her. So they sent one young gladiator out there, and here's this young woman just gave birth to a child, everything else. In the end, he couldn't kill her. So funny, as the story goes, she took his sword, his shaking sword, and put it at her throat, and then he killed her. So even those stories that I know, they also include the same thing. That there was some kind of when the people did it, they knew that God would protect them and stuff like that.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Somebody mentioned something about the anger in the spiritual world, and where we're talking about anger here in the material world, and I want to see if you can correct me in my thinking. I always thought, or I understood, that the anger here in the material world, it comes from unfulfilled desires.
Yeah.
Like when we get frustrated, then we get angry. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I also heard that in the spiritual world, the anger is like we are a perverted reflection of that. So it can't be unfulfilled desires over there. It's more like part of the Leela, just to give Leela to Krishna. Am I wrong, Maharaj?
Yeah. It's again, it's like some guy goes to some war or something, and he's, some people are attacking people and killing them and everything else. So he goes with his other people, and they defend these people, and And so there's anger. Prabhupada says you can't fight without anger to deal with these people and stuff. And you're angry at them and you want them to, annihilate them, whatever, But the same person comes back and he may engage in a tennis match with his friend. Now he's fighting still, but now he wants his friend to give him a good game and everything else. Prabhupada would encourage, as far as I've heard from so many sources, would encourage Tamal Krishna Maharaj to fight with him. And Prabhupada liked that, fighting spirit, but it wasn't to hurt the other person. It was actually to stimulate the other person to really just put their full energy and passion into the thing and everything they had, And so, then when Tamal Krishna Maharaj went out and confronted somebody on one of these arguments, he'd already been through it with the master. So there was no problem. He knew how to use his anger. He knew how to deal with these things like that. So, in that sense, in the spiritual world, the test is, after an argument where there's anger, if you don't want to engage in devotional service, if you don't want to associate with the other person, don't understand them better, then it was material. But afterwards, if you feel really good about the other person, like, that was good, good fight, and you feel like you know them better, and you want to engage in more service, then it was a spiritual thing,
So there was no emotional involvement. Like sometimes when people get angry, there's so much emotional involvement that it actually poisons their body. And
oh yeah. But there's emotional involvement. But again, this is one of the, what is this? This is the secondary rasa, like that. So again, Radharani becomes so angry with Krishna. But it's not to hurt Krishna or to control Krishna. It's just to stimulate Krishna, And Krishna likes this. He likes it when his girlfriend when he's like joking with Chandravali and Radharani, he's like giving him a pointed look with her eyebrows. It makes him happy. Oh my goodness, okay, Radharani really likes me, like that, and so on. So it's like peppers in the sabji, not too many. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. It's Peru.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for this nice class. But I have another question to request, because I am on Skype and I couldn't see the PPT, but now I am on Icon Hawaii webpage, so I can see. If you can kindly pass at least the PPT. It can be like nice just to see the images.
Summary.
Yes.
Okay, we'll summarize our pictures. Can you see that?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, this is a cowboy. Actually, it's a cowgirl. Actually, it looks like I look at it. It's not a cowboy. It's a cowgirl. Okay. Chasing a horse. We're going to rope them up in the verse, and its translations, and the purports.
Yeah.
And then we have the, violence is never good, but sometimes necessary to defend the weak against the strong. When good arguments fail. Okay. Yeah. What is this? This is shift F5. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. That's the point. It has to be applied expertly, Prabhupada says. And of course, here's the age-old art of run fu. Like that. It's amazing how high cats can jump when they have to. Yeah. And then in Vrindavan, only Krishna and Balaram. So we hear Krishna, we see Krishna and Balaram killing demons. And I had so many times like that. It's a fact. Every time Krishna will take care of you, like that. Yeah? And of course, in Prabhupada's comment, that the best thing is to chant Hare Krishna. 3 times he says that, chant Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. Yeah? And again, my experiences in ISKCON, when we're talking about this, is in so many cases, if you have your choice between becoming angry and trying to use force or not doing it, I would say rather than, Prabhupada says that, like a lamb at home and like a lion on the hunt. So when we're out preaching in Sankirtan, okay, maybe we'll be a little bit more enthusiastic, to be bold. But with devotees, you're a little bit more careful to actually be more peaceful than aggressive and try to deal with situations like that. Because the reaction is so bad, amongst the devotees, that's so difficult. And that's all we had at a time like that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Guru.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah,
Hare
can
Krishna.
I ask a question of time?
Yeah, please.
Is it time or can I ask? Okay. These days there's a communication strategy which is non-violent communication. And
one thing, your voice is breaking up here, so you got to talk slowly, like you're on some kind of tranquilizing drug or something.
Okay. So these days there is a trend of communication strategy called non-violent communication, which actually says that sometimes people become violent to express themselves. They can't generally express coolly, but they have to express violently. Why is that so? Because I've experienced that many a times. I can avoid persons, but when I communicate, it comes with a gust of energy, and the expressions are not very palpable.
Okay, I got most of it. Can you say it again, because I got like about 80% of it.
You know what, Maharaj? I could summarize, because I heard it a little bit better.
Okay.
He's saying about non-violent communication. He experiences, as they describe, that people become violent when they try and express themselves. If they can't express themselves, they become violent. So why is that? Is that fair, Harsh Prabhu?
No. Little part is they generally cannot express themselves. So if it is not expressing, they will be calm and quiet. But when they express, they have to express with violence. They cannot express in a normal tone.
Yeah, I have the same problem. Prabhupada says Oriental tendency is to bow down 99 times, and the 100th time to jump up and cut your opponent's throat with a knife. Like that. So, wow. I'm trying to figure out why. But I don't know if it's like just a general mood of the times, or it's just certain kind of people, But I don't know. It's kind of, it builds up to the point, where when it comes out, there's violence. So the thing is, people maybe a Shudra. I don't exactly know. Shudra nature is to avoid violence and stuff, But Kshatriya and people like this, they're trained to use it, to let their emotions come out, in a moderate fashion. They're trained how to express their dissatisfaction in a moderate fashion. I kind of intuitively think maybe someone else can get it better. But that's what the fact is, that we're just not trained how, to do this, and so when it comes out, it finally comes out violently. But because we're all Shudras, we're all in the mode of ignorance and stuff like that. So tendency is not to react with, with violence or force. I would say before violence, with force. But I can't really exactly, say why it is. Other than that, I think most people are just in the modern world are just like that. Shudras at the best, and so they can't express themselves properly. And so when finally they do try to express themselves, it has to come out with like this, force, because they've been holding it so much. Repressing it so much. So the art is, and myself, several karate instructors and different people told me, you've got, my whole thing in karate, actually, 3 different guys told me this, I actually noticed this was a fact. Everything I would do was just, moves to avoid conflict, or else to kill people. How to punch people in the throat that was kind of like working on these kind of moves. And then I realized that was my mentality. You see, you avoid problems, and after, at some point, you say, "Okay, buddy, that's it," and then just, kick them in the throat with rolling wave click from across the room, and Buddhimanta was describing his frustration with people who used to harass him at the airports, so on. And so something like that, gratification. And so I think so many movies are like that too. Very much, you see, it's the same way in the movies, right? There's just nothing, and then suddenly the guy blows everybody up and stuff, and people want that. Whereas you can learn how to, for example, you can learn how to hit somebody in the chest, and say, hey, this and that, and just, calm them down and communicate it. So I think it is in the modern world, it's a fact, in marriage relationships too, to be able to, one of the biggest things, right? To be able to be bold enough to express your dissatisfaction, like that, but without, at a point before it becomes too much, becomes too built up to the point where it has to come out as violence and stuff. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, are you frustrated with my answer?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I was just wondering, when you told that story about giving a class in Vancouver, Canada,
yeah,
and Swami and Jagadish Swami had asked you like that to do that. I'm just curious when that took place, because it sounds like I was living in Canada and I don't remember the incident but myself.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, it was a long time ago. I think I was already taking disciples like that, so it must have been after 2004, like that, Yeah, it was just one day. He was visiting. Do you remember? Do you remember that brahmachari? He was a sannyasi then, Gaudiya Math. Do you remember him visiting the temple?
I left Vancouver in 2000.
Oh, okay. So this would have been 2004, I think. Yeah.
All right.
After that,
Yeah, I was there from 93 to 2000.
Okay, you missed out on that.
Shucks, darn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else? Huh? Okay, Maharaj, thank you very much. There's a lot of devotees here today, over 30.
Okay. I would have tried to make a little longer PowerPoint show.
32 altogether.
Yeah. These are very, it's interesting because the more you go through these things, you start to see little words, going over it again and again, like Prabhupada said, is amazing. You start seeing like little words and stuff and how they indicate something, And so it's like, I remember the prayers by Queen Kunti. I would go over them again and again. And it seems like she's very satisfied, like with people reciting her prayers and stuff. And so she starts to reveal to you, like, what she was thinking and so on, like that. It's just amazing, and it starts to become so rich, everything else. I guess that's the point, then it penetrates. And we could go, any one of us could go right to the biggest administrator in our place, the governor of Idaho, the governor of Hawaii, the governor of, any place, go right up to him and just say, I want to talk to the governor, like that. What do you want, And then, if we're confident and qualified, boy, we can approach so many people like that, So on. But that means we have to become much more purified and much more qualified to be used as instruments and stuff. So hearing again and again is just amazing. It's actually frightening to me, like, wow, how intense these things are. And I see to myself that what I have to do is just I'm so attached to my gross body, to feeling good. Eat so I feel good, the energy and stuff like that. But I see it beyond that. What is it that Krishna and Prabhupada, he was so light. The Triarishi said one time they had sandesh for everybody, and Prabhupada gave everybody a piece, and he said he ate his piece, everybody ate their piece. And after about 10 minutes in the lecture, Prabhupada gave, just to go see some more. And finally, Triarishi noticed that everybody else had eaten 4 pieces of sandesh, and Prabhupada was just breaking off a little piece. Maybe he got half his sandesh eaten after they'd already eaten 4 pieces like that, And such, everything so fine, and then we can react to these very fine situations like that. So thank you all very much. We'll try and log on as much as we can also to listen to lectures. We'll be headed off to back to Tennessee next Tuesday, and we'll be there for 2 months like that. So, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Jai. Praise Hanumatpresaka Swami.
Yes, thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.